Hello, everyone. Sloan here with another fantastic episode of the Free Money Podcast. In this one, we're joined by Ben Meng, Executive Vice President of Franklin Templeton, to talk about carbon pricing. He believes that the global war against climate change will be won or lost in Asia. And that happens to be the territory that he oversees for Franklin Templeton, so he's able to give us quite a detailed update on how the fight is going. We'll also hear about how Franklin is using its heft to influence this, the ways that companies are already incorporating carbon pricing into their internal processes, and the outlook for a potential cross-border carbon market emerging. That conversation starts about 17 minutes into this episode. But we've got much more to share with you, including our answers to listener questions and our signature garden tip at the end of this episode. If you'd like to ask a question in an upcoming episode, please write to us. The email is freemoneypod@gmail.com. And before I forget, this episode of the Free Money Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Cordatius, who are experienced doulas to investment offices navigating digital transformation. Cordatius focuses on your data so you can focus on alpha. For more info, visit cordatiusllc.com. I'll catch you on the other side of the disclaimer. Take it away, Sharkbait.
Ahoy, Free Money Podcast listeners! I'm Sharkbait Buckley, the Disclosure Pirate, and I'm here to set ye straight about what's going on with this here show. Sloan Ortel works for Invest Vegan LLC, a New York registered investment advisor. Ashby Monk works for Stanford University, Adapar, Future Proof, Long Game, and various startups. All opinions expressed by either Sloan or Ashby are entirely their own, and do not reflect the opinions of their crew or any company. Clients who Invest Vegan may maintain positions in securities and strategies discussed in this podcast. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Invest Vegan and its representatives are properly licensed or exempted, and a client agreement has been executed. Arr.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
Welcome to the Free Money Podcast. We're back from COVID, baby, with some of the Bay Area consensus about institutional investing that honestly you're living for at this point. Let's be real.
It's been too long.
It's been too long.
We apologize, dear listeners, but we're back. This is the podcast. I think I might have said this, or I said this in my dreams. We chill down and calm out.
Chill down and calm out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Get your brain into it.
Just get your brain ready for some creativity and pension funds.
And some freaking long-term investing, right? Like, that's not an unchill exercise. That's like, that's about as like high octane as gardening when it comes
Long-term
to
investing. You got to plant those seeds early, nurture them.
Yeah.
This is speaking of long-term investing. I was actually going to talk about my work at Stanford off the top here because it's been so long.
Yeah.
And
are you doing anything there, or like?
I'm trying to put Stanford on the map.
Oh, yeah, like
you know what I mean?
It's this weird university in California. No one's ever heard of it.
see if I can put Stanford on the map finally for a few. So you know that I tend to make fun of the net zero portfolios in the world of institutional investment. You're familiar with that theme? It's a recurring gag I do.
I mean, you actually blacked out entirely on my end when you were saying that, but I do know that you tend to make fun of things, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Oh no, are we literally already having technical difficulties?
You might have bought a new mic, Monk, but
Oh no, now one of our listeners is gonna be furious. I had one listener say, "Don't you dare upgrade your technology." And then this listener made fun of me for about 12 minutes in a meeting about my technology. So I got a new microphone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, like, it's
a little sheepish about it.
Yeah, shame is really what drives us here at the Free Money Podcast. Anyway, what do you like?
Oh yeah, putting Stanford on the map. So I have 5 students working on different aspects of net zero portfolios for institutional investors.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Like, so wait, you're saying that there's actually something to talk about within that?
No joke. Yeah, like this was not a gag. This was real. We
Not
take the money, and this is not a bit. We take the money and we give it to students, and those students are using that money to go collect data, and Lord knows what they do with their money in college. I know what I did with my money, but anyways, we found out one of my students, Thea Rosenberg, who is from Norway.
Cool.
And she's a fabulous student. She's an undergrad. She found out that 73 universities in the United States of the top 100. Oh my gosh. I just had a note that said we can't access your video. Tell me if we're having trouble. Are we okay?
Your video is glitching a little bit, but
Oh my God.
It's just
too much sometimes.
Yeah.
The stress, the anxiety that I get now.
I know. I mean, you guys out in California are just so good at the internet. It's really like, I think your pipe might be too broad for this, this technology,
I think I just have to remind myself that the podcast platform is meant to handle those issues, even though, Sloan, it has not handled those issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Like one of our more recent podcasts was pretty effed up. I want to call attention to it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The one where I cut out entirely and it was just you talking to yourself.
And I talked to myself for half an hour. That was a nice listen. I was like, oh my God, this is happening right now. Anyway, Thea found out of the top 100 endowments, 73 of those universities have made net zero commitments, but only 6 of them have made net zero commitments in their portfolios.
Okay. So it's a net zero. We'll get to it by 2050, but we haven't actually done anything yet to implement that.
And there's a big difference between operations and portfolios.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, shit, if you believe in it enough to make a net zero commitment for your operations, what is stopping you, in 67 of the cases, 67 of the cases from making a net zero portfolio commitment. And so she's writing a paper right now that kind of goes into that topic, which will literally put Stanford on the map finally. She's going to do it single-handedly. But it is fascinating to me that you could have that kind of a cognitive dissonance where on the one hand, you're like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to be a net zero university. Oh, but not our portfolio.
Why would we do that?
Why would we do that? Yeah.
The thing that like pays the bills and keeps us alive? Nah.
Yeah. It kind of speaks to like the baloney of it all.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, I think, as like a portfolio manager, right? Like the question I get all the time is like, how are you going to generate returns, right? And
exactly.
Like, if you decompose like returns by sector and like actually look at how the sausage gets made in the S&P and the whatever, and like spend time with it, you can get pretty comfortable. But it's amazing how powerful the pressure to be one of the conventional thinkers is. Like, is there career risk at these endowments that's keeping people from operationalizing the thing that the board of chancellors has already voted on for everything else? Like, what is it that keeps them? I will really look for it. Maybe we should have Thea on when.
Let's do it.
Let's
have her on. The problem is she's going to get a job at Stanford Management Corporation. So she's probably not going to want to talk about it, or won't be allowed to. I will tell you, Stanford is one of the 6 that have made a net zero portfolio commitment. So good for you, Stanford. We respect and honor that. We're trying not to make fun of the people who do net zero commitments, right? I think that was on one of the recent podcasts. I made a commitment not to make fun of them.
In addition to your own personal net zero commitment.
That's right. Yeah, my own personal net zero liability.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do have news.
I'm not making that, by the way.
You don't do it.
I'm not committing to net zero. Yeah. What's your news?
I've got 3 bits of news.
Wow.
This is the news. I don't have news. This is the news.
It's a segment. Wow.
I love it. You were like, oh, you've got some news. Fascinating. You almost sounded like you didn't realize this segment was a traditional part of the show.
Doing it live, baby.
Doing it live. You're very good acting. The Saudi PIF I was going to mention, because it's been in the news a lot. The Saudi PIF is a fairly new sovereign fund. Maybe a development fund, maybe a wealth fund, hard to tell. They are doing a bunch of newsworthy stuff, which is interesting. The first thing they did is they are launching a new Saudi coffee company, which I thought was kind of an obvious thing. Human beings love coffee. They are also backing a very controversial golf league. I don't know if you've seen any of the news, but they're back in golf. They're trying to build a Saudi league of golfers. And I think they've got like Phil Mickelson and other people. And these
I saw a bunch of people. They got suspended for it, right, from the PGA.
I think they're actually having to leave the PGA. And the reason is, I think, related back to certain Khashoggi journalists.
It's related to how Saudi Arabia is run by a totalitarian regime.
It may be. It's related to that. I don't do all the research here.
The vibes are just off whenever the Saudi government comes into the room for some reason.
Yeah,
that's great. But like a golf league in Saudi Arabia,
I know.
Like what? Okay,
and
what's
you're at it,
like there again?
Oh, it's going to be a lot like
it's a lot of sand traps.
California. What's the California place that? Oh, Palm. It's going to look like Palm Springs. I'm thinking.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, deserts with.
Yep.
With golf courses, and the PIF made more news for giving $2 billion to our neighborhood-friendly Jared Kushner.
Oh,
I'm sure he deserved it. Because when you look at his pitch deck, boy, does he have a well-thought-out investment strategy. It is, if you want to giggle in the institutional space, go read that pitch deck. And think to yourself, could I go and ask for $2 billion from an LP with this pitch deck? It's unbelievable.
Also fun to think to yourself, just like, how do I get access to this compelling investment strategy? Oh my gosh.
You know what? I don't know how you get access to it. It's there. I'm sure there's plenty of space available if you see that deck and you want some.
Yeah, just hang out with anyone that you can see who has the worst vibes ever, and then you'll probably get a pitch to invest in it before too long.
Yeah, apparently MBS had to step in and actually overrule the PIF on that one. I think the PIF was actually leaning towards not doing it, and then the boss said, we're doing it.
Makes sense.
New fund alert. This one I think I'm going to screw up the pronunciation of, okay? The first new fund. There's two new funds. You know what? I'll start with the one that I can say. Israel Citizens Fund is coming online. Israel discovered huge deposits of natural gas in the Mediterranean back in 2013. It has taken a decade of work to get the Israel Citizens Fund up and running, but it is now officially, as of June 2020, when we are recording this, there's money in it and it is functioning. And they call it the Israel Citizens Fund because it has a much better ring than Israel Fossil Fuel Exploitation Fund.
Yeah. I mean, but that's a proud tradition. Just take your real wealth and put it in a sovereign wealth fund, right? Like
that's right. Proud tradition. Yeah. And give it a fun name like Norway's Global Pension Fund. It's way better than it's way better than just dividending it to your citizens and letting them buy Lambos like they do in a lot of the Gulf. Yeah, or Alaska. And in those cases, good fishing poles because it's only about 4. Okay. Another new fund. This is the one I was worried about. The Welwitschia Sovereign Wealth Fund is alive, managed by the Bank of Namibia. It's going to diversify Namibia. Here's a trivia question for you, Sloan. What natural resource is the Welwitschia Sovereign Wealth Fund intended to diversify for Namibia?
I'm gonna go with diversifying out of cocoa. No?
Oh, what a great! You know what? It could be. That's not the main one, but frankly, it's such a good guess that I'm gonna say possibly. You know, you're not totally wrong, but you're also not totally right. The correct answer was diamonds.
Oh yeah. That's a way better thing to diversify from. I don't think cocoa is valuable enough to be like, oh yeah, we got so much cocoa wealth coming in.
Yeah, we're riddled with beans.
Yeah.
Last bit of news, which ties into our guest. The China Investment Corporation has issued another report on getting to net zero. How about that? They've made the commitment. Not only have they made the commitment, but they're really only like the first 5 institutions in the world that I have seen actually put a report out to say, here's how we're going to do it. And I promised I wouldn't make fun of them. So I will just simply say it's fairly general. It's more principles based. for example, one of the principles in the plan is that they will talk about climate change more at meetings.
And that's pretty good, honestly. I mean, that's better than not doing it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good step. It's not all that specific.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about climate change at meetings of people and also get to net zero.
I mean, it's crazy that they did that because we have like one of the best guests to talk about that with, the inimitable Ben Meng, who is the executive vice president at Franklin Templeton in charge of their Asia business.
Beautiful.
And, like not only that, but an experienced hand in the public pension space. Welcome to the Free Money Podcast.
I'm having a technical problem. I cannot turn on my camera. I don't know what happened, but at least now we're talking.
But Ben, can you see us? You see us, and you can see that we're here.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I see both of you now. I know my colleague Lisa is online, but she's in listening mode. I'm sure she was worried that she couldn't hear me or see me, but I show up on audio, so that's good enough. This is an audio event.
No, audio is perfect. We don't actually share the video, so it's just the audio that we need.
And we're also famous for technical difficulties, so you're making a lot of listeners very happy right now.
Yeah, we're notorious. Yeah. Ben, we were just introducing you, and we were talking. One of the news items we were talking about just prior to this actually was that the China Investment Corporation just very recently published their guidelines for getting to net zero.
Yep.
And they're actually one of only about 5 or 6 institutional investors that I've seen actually put out a document that says how they're going to go towards that net zero commitment, not just that they're doing it. Yeah. And so this is a topic we want to talk to you about, not just net zero, but carbon. Yep. And that's because of your recent role at Franklin Templeton, where you're the executive sponsor of sustainability. So we're just pumped to have you.
Thank you for having me, and nice to see you. As always, and very nice to meet you, Sloan.
Likewise.
At the pandemic now, it's to see people. So I heard about news. I have not read the report from CIC yet, but as you know, a number of asset managers and asset owners globally, they're committed to net zero by certain timeline, 2050, 2060. And most of them were committed in the past 12 months. And in the coming months, you will see a flurry of reports, detailed report. We saw a few already from asset managers like us, and ourselves included in the list. So by July, you will see our report as well. And I'll make sure to send you a copy of Franklin Templeton's report for our net zero commitment. We are part of the asset managers net zero initiative. So we sign up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And are you guys going to get sort of detailed with how you can do it, like measurement and tracing and things like that, or this more principles and policies at this stage?
So I have to create some suspension here now. Once we're all sharing and then maybe you can have both Ann Simmons and myself back on the show again. Otherwise, I'm spilling the beans. So the team is
okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the instinct to hype up your next appearance on the Free Money Podcast. That's very good guest behavior.
It's good. We endorse.
I gotta ask though, I feel like ever since my first economics class, the professors have been standing up and saying, we need to put a price on carbon. We need to put a price on carbon. Even Greg Mankiw, who was like the chairman of George Bush's Council of Economic Advisors, has been a big bull on carbon pricing forever. And I wonder what's different about where we are today. Like, what sort of end state are you able to hope for now that might not have been apparent a couple of years ago?
Yeah. So there is, of course, as we all know, there's a more sense of urgency now. We committed since the Paris Agreement, and in the past couple of years, we didn't make much progress. As a matter of fact, the emission went up, which means that we have to go even more aggressive. And part of that is carbon pricing. Speaking for economic class, if we can really reduce economics into one sentence, that would be the people's response to incentives. So you have to have the right incentive to change customer behavior, corporate behavior, to make the change. So carbon pricing, put a price on carbon is critical. And why is that the principle make the polluter pay? We have dealt with this similar issue not on carbon but on other pollutants before, and the principle make the polluter pay worked, and why is not the case in carbon, right? And also, the economic logic for carbon pricing has been well understood for many years. And also, it is an important issue. It was included in the Glasgow Pact proposals, but of course, there are much more work to do. As we know, globally, around only 25% of the global emission are covered by some form of a carbon market globally. That's not enough. And also, some form of the carbon market. I know we're going to talk about Asia and China. They started the effort, but the price of carbon doesn't make sense at all. But at least they started. So the first step, people say, is the half of the success, right? So many countries make the first step now, and the discussion for cross-border schemes will give another potential, a push to really expand across market. And when currently there are no or little carbon market coverage, once there is a cross-border scheme, that will really push that. Will change the game, and hopefully there will be global carbon market to be established. And also in the United States, both of you know very well, a year or so ago, CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, chaired by our friend Bob Littman. By the way, he moved to our neighborhood during the pandemic. He's one of the
wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I know. So you definitely should have him on. He is the leading figure on this topic.
He's so rad.
I
He's
know.
so rad.
And in his CFTC report for the United States, he really mapped out, and he made a very strong argument that we need carbon pricing. And it is my projection, this carbon pricing will be on the agenda for COP27 in Egypt, and along with the removal of inefficient subsidies as proposed in COP26 in Glasgow. So I'm very hopeful the direction of travel of carbon pricing is very clear.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit more about the international context because, Ben, many of our listeners, maybe they don't appreciate, you are running large institutional investment organizations in Asia and China. And so part of the interest here is understanding how the rest of the world is rolling out some of these structures. You mentioned Asia. How do you see the rollout of carbon pricing in places like China? You mentioned there's only 25% of emissions that are captured, under this. So just share a little bit of that international experience for us and the benefit of all the listeners.
Absolutely. We know that actually our global war against climate change will be won or lost in Asia. The reason is that some of the largest emitters, be China, India, even Japan, in a way, are in Asia. So we have to focus on Asia. And so carbon pricing is critical. As my dear colleague, Ann Simpson, who is also the global head of sustainability of our firm, she and I, we co-authored a few articles recently after SEC put out the proposal in making climate risk disclosure mandatory. And then I quickly published an op-ed on Financial Times to show our support. And then right after that, and then I also published another op-ed on product syndicate in support of carbon pricing. The reason I brought up is that is our belief the private market or the capital market are missing two eyes in order to become a meaningful player or meaningful part of the solution of climate change. The two missing eye, the first eye is information. Investors need investment-grade information in climate risk so that they can develop the needed risk and return analytics based on climate risk, just like what we do with financial risk through financial reporting. And that first missing eye is quickly coming in place now, particularly given about 2 months ago, ICEC proposal, and most likely that'll be followed by other regulatory bodies globally. So we're very hopeful and encouraged by the recent movement that the first missing piece of I is it's going away. Basically, the gap is being filled. Where the investor will have the right information to do the risk return analysis. But the right information is only is necessary, but not sufficient. The investor also need another missing piece of I, which is incentives. So for investors to entice them to provide private capital to be part of the solution, you have to make it financially viable. If for any, we're talking about sustainable investing and sustainable business, and similar true for asset managers as well, for asset owners. If you have a strategy cannot generate a meaningful or desired financial return, almost by definition cannot be scalable, not sustainable. Particularly if your mandate, if your fiduciary duty to generate risk-adjusted return. So that's why carbon pricing is very critical. And that goes back to your question, asked me, why in Asia carbon pricing even more important? Because most of the many large emitters are in Asia, and we need to get that right in Asia. And part of that getting right is carbon pricing. The good news is that carbon pricing in Asia Pacific is on the rise. So the employment of carbon pricing in Asia, including both emission trading systems as well as carbon tax, in countries such as China, Japan, Singapore, and South Korea, they all have some kind of a carbon pricing schemes in place. And Japan, for example, both Japan and Singapore have the carbon tax, and they use the tax revenue for some climate risk mitigation strategies or investment. And also there are other countries has the cap and trade emission trading system. And with a progressively tightening emission gaps, the ETS, the emission trading system, are likely to play a critical role in achieving net zero goals. And also we know many Asian countries like China, Korea, Japan, they all committed to net zero. China has a dual target. They committed to the peaking for carbon emission by 2030, the net zero by 2060. And if you look at all these countries, their plan for net zero all include some form of carbon pricing, and is a critical tool for countries to achieve their net zero emission target. And that is true for companies as well, for investor, asset manager, asset owners as well. So carbon pricing is really critical missing piece now. A global has to be global, because carbon does not respect national borders, right?
No,
As atmosphere, it can go anywhere. So it has to be a global carbon pricing scheme. So with that, I'm also very hopeful seeing some momentum. I think the cross-border carbon pricing scheme will be started by the Europeans, and that will send out the ripple effects globally. So I'm very hopeful. And I know in a couple of hours I'm going to Europe. I'm seeing some regulators. I will be making the same speech.
Awesome.
Asking for a cross-border carbon pricing. Europe, please start. Once you start, you can lead the rest of the world.
I mean, that's definitely happening. I mean, the last time we talked about carbon pricing in an episode, and it's awesome that we're able to talk about carbon pricing again in more detail. Our guest there, Lars Kreuer, was talking about the difference between the voluntary offset market and the regulatory market. And he pointed to like almost a 6-to-1 gap in pricing, where it's 6 times cheaper to do the voluntary than the regulatory market.
Right.
As you're talking about like kind of, companies starting to use carbon prices in internal efforts, and, kind of the way that the private sector is adapting in the absence of regulation, do you have a sense of how those like internal carbon targets, might relate to the existing regulatory carbon markets that are out there, and whether people are making enough adjustment in those corporate planning cycles?
Yeah, no, at least a very good question. Actually, this is part of the challenge we face now. Some of the companies, they have the internally assumed price of carbon, which is critical. At least it shows the awareness of some companies that they understand the price of carbon is coming. And in order for them to plan the business in the long term, such as CapEx plans, they want to consider what potentially the carbon price is going to be in the future. And then they could decide what kind of CapEx project to take on. But currently, disclosing or establishing internally assumed price of carbon and disclosing them. Disclosing them now is required by ICC if you have one. But ICC is not requiring you to have one. But if you have one, then you have to disclose. So this shows the limitation of ICC. Actually, ICC's mandate quite clear is on disclosure. But in addition to that, ICC cannot really make a company to be greener or cleaner. But if you have an internal a price of carbon, you have to disclose it. So here's the tricky part. I have in my conversation with many companies, they're worried about if they disclose because, particularly in the US, there's a heightened sensitivity of a litigation risk. And the company are very worried if I disclose something, but there's not really an industry standard yet. There are a lot of norms have not been established yet. If I prematurely disclose something, I might subject myself to some future litigation. So that is one a challenge. And that's why we don't know. We don't have a full picture of all the companies in their head. What are they assuming the price of carbon internally? We don't have a full picture because they are not required to be disclosed yet, but ICC is asking for that. But so in what I found, ICC, the current proposal, the rules is crafted with a lot of care and consultation with the market. It provides enough safe harbor provisions. So that should help companies to feel comfortable to disclose their internally assumed price of carbon because they are protected by the safe harbor provision. So that actually, I view this as a positive momentum as well. At least people are talking about the internal assumed price of carbon, and SEC is providing safe harbor provision so that you can start doing it now. We know it's not perfect yet. We are going to shield you away from potential litigation risk. So this is another positive development.
Ben, you mentioned the SEC a whole bunch, and we've been tracking some of the looming disclosure requirements around carbon that the SEC is putting together. And I'm just curious, some of the critiques of this that are coming on are that it will push companies, public companies, to move away from smaller suppliers that maybe don't have a handle yet on their carbon footprint. Are you worried about that, or do you see it differently?
I'm not worried about that as much because in a way, I also mentioned the process. ICC engaged a really prolonged period of consultation of these ideas and provide safe harbor rules. So for larger companies, you're doing business with smaller companies, and this really only apply to Scope 3 emission, right? And Scope 3 emission currently the proposal is written as is only for material. You have to disclose them. And also for smaller companies, they are exempt from it until their revenue become meaningful enough. So for the smaller company, actually, they are exempt. And also many of the requirements are phased in. So it's not right away. The phasing is over a number of years. Then for the larger companies, you do business with smaller companies. And of course, Scope 3 includes. But then again, because of the safe harbor provision, for the larger company, it's safe. If you do not have a full picture, of the smaller suppliers. For one, they may not be material, and for two, even if they were material, but you made a mistake in disclosure, but with good intention, there's safe harbor rules. So I'm not too worried about the impact of the proposing rule on the smaller companies. Again. The ICC crafted the rule with care.
I mean, that's really really well put and kind of cute. I love regulations that are crafted with care.
Yeah, me too.
It's like Papa Gary Gensler is like baking us a nice pie and leaving it out on the sill to warm and waft its scent throughout the practitioner environment.
Even better. I hope Gary and ICC is listening to our podcast.
I mean, yeah.
At least they have some support from us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I send them threatening emails every time they don't listen to our podcast. So hopefully they've learned. I think one of the really interesting things in talking to you about this is you've spent your career at these humongous organizations that are used to thinking about the intersection of mission and capital, right? CalPERS, CIC, et cetera. how should we expect with you in this role now? Safe, yeah. With you in this role now, like how should we expect to see Franklin Templeton using its scale to help carbon markets mature?
Yep. So again, our op-ed on product syndicate state very clearly we support carbon pricing, and we even more so we first remove the fossil fuel subsidies so that we can level the playing field, and then you invite private capital to come in to become part of the solution for climate change. So our firm's stand is quite clear. We have acknowledged the vital role of carbon pricing in ensuring that incentives are aligned, and we work through climate action 100 plus organizations, and also engaging companies as well as regulators on these issues. And also on that note, with Ann Simpson joining us as our global head of sustainability slightly over 2 months ago, that's also to shows our commitment in this space and our belief, philosophy in this space. As we all know, Anne is definitely one of the global leading thought leaders in this space. She also comes from academia and a practitioner. We call her pracademic. So she's one of the few pracademic.
I love that term.
Yeah, you definitely should reach out to her, have her get back on your podcast in the future. She's she's in our neck of the wood now, just like Bob Liederman.
Awesome.
Exactly. So we should have a group, a podcast next time.
Is she? Are you in? I mean, are you located where Franklin Templeton is located? I don't want to say the specific city for specific reasons. I don't want people chasing you down. But are you at the headquarters? Because I'm just south of there.
Yes, I am. And depending on what post-pandemic we'll be spending. I mean, and myself as well. We'll be spending a lot of time in the headquarters. That's where we are based.
Okay. Yeah. That's so close to Stanford. I mean, it would be really fun to have you guys over for coffee at some point.
And at least you can be on record, off-record least part. I would just exchanging note with Mark Anson.
But
is another former CFO of CalPERS, and Janine Goodlet, of course, So, and I was having lunch with Janine. So in the Bay Area, through our circle, we can put together almost like a salon or something on this topic.
It'd be fantastic.
Oh man, this is giving me FOMO. I love it.
We'll get you out, Sloan.
Yeah, exactly.
Fear from missing out. And the strategy in terms of bringing people and investors to the table. We want to show successful strategy, being sustainable investor, particularly if you focus on something more quantifiable and more related, such as climate change, other issues, you can do well and do good at the same time. And then we can create such kind of successful examples, a couple of them, and then that's what we exactly the FOMO moment, fear of missing out. The investors, all the good investors, they want the investment returns. And once it is proven there's a case out there, I think getting private capital to the table would not be that challenging anymore. First, we have the information. Second, have the incentive, which is the carbon price. And then you show them a few successful examples. People will come to the table. So that's an optimistic side of me.
I think we're in violent agreement on that.
Yeah. I mean, we have to tackle directly this sort of poverty of imagination that exists in the investment industry. Yeah, it's like because we're just missing out on role models, right? And roadmaps, and that's what Ashby and I are here for, and it's pretty awesome to have co-religionists along.
That's why we wanted to have you on. We wanted to. We're in the business of raising up the people thinking creatively and that don't see this as a zero-sum game and see it as an opportunity to manage risks and generate long-term return. Yeah.
This is the opportunity, it's a value creation opportunity now. So Anne and I talked the other day, we are thinking about our next op-ed exactly on this topic. That we want to talk about the third era of impact investing. The first era is really about a few people who wants to change the world. from philanthropies, foundations. And the second era is really about risk mitigation from corporate boards and investors, realizing the physical risk, transition risk, immobile risk mitigation. But now with all the momentum from regulators, COP26, all the momentum, now we're approaching inflection point. Now we call the third era of impact investing is a value creation and the return generation. And that's where the investor will see the opportunity and they will rush to the table. And also, I like what you used a moment ago, imagination. We need imagination. The reason is that it's happening so rapidly in front of us. And finance people, professionals, were used to look at historical data, analyze the data, identify the pattern, and to see if there's a return generation opportunities. Unfortunately, climate change, we did not collect all the data as needed.
Yeah.
And that's why we need imagination. We're waiting until we have enough data to act. That's not the solution. That'll be too late. It's already too late now, right? So that's why when you mention imagination, that's the critical word. Now is the time to use imagination and use sound logic and fair and good professional judgment. We cannot wait until we have enough data to act.
Yeah,
I love it, Ben. Perfect. And look, good luck with the regulators in Europe. Hopefully you get a chance to tell that exact story. And, the questioning won't be as tough as it was here on the Free Money Podcast. So I think...
Yeah, hold their feet to the fire.
Some of the political links people in media. Yeah. Be prepared. I'm coming with all leads.
Exactly.
All right. Well,
All
take
right.
that energy. We love it. We'll have you back, and long distance high five to you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure you're going to edit. So certain things you don't like, just edit out.
We love it all, but yeah, we'll clean up some of our technical difficulties at the beginning. But aside from that,
we'll leave just a sprinkling of it.
so the people who love that.
Thank you so much for having me, and very nice to see you again, Ashby. We're very nice meeting you soon.
Likewise.
Awesome.
Likewise.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
I wonder if we could do a podcast where we just had institutional investment people, no talk about institutional investing at all, only technical difficulties.
Yeah. That was so good. I love his comment about how we go from impact, like philanthropy, to risk management to value creation. It seems obvious. Like if we have $100 billion space company called SpaceX, like somebody's going to build $100 billion, carbon management. I don't know what it's going to be, but look, you just need imagination.
What drives me crazy is if their company, as a portfolio manager, their companies, like the companies I invest in, like just get no love from the markets for the profound impact that they have in so many cases, right? Like I think the story about ESG investing for a long time has been like, oh, is there an ESG bubble? Like, a couple of tech companies were trading up like crazy and a lot of people were blaming ESG investors for that or whatever. But I think, much more than that, there are a lot of instances where there are companies that have profound impact, don't have the data to show that impact in a provable way yet. And so as a result, they just lumber along looking like normal banks or normal recycling companies or whatever to the market until you come in and actually look at them. And I hope he's right that people start beating a path to the door of places that have that capability, because it's in my enlightened self-interest.
I was like, oh, I love that I don't need to do data. I could just imagine. I know that it's not binary. You got to have data to build the imagination, but
yeah. And the thing is, in a segment like agriculture, for instance, right? If you're looking at organic farms, like in order to certify a farm as organic, you have to go through these Byzantine things, and you have to be able to imagine, like literally the process of certifying cropland as organic might result in you dividing one field up into 70 pieces and treating them all like different pieces based on the last time you applied, all organic stuff. So if you have to spray pesticide or something, it's insane. Anyway. That was so cool, and I'm so pumped that there is actual momentum happening on this front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I admit, I can't believe how much carbon pricing is going on.
Yeah.
He noted like a lot of countries with like different things happening. And I do feel a little bit optimistic almost.
Yeah, it's really like when like we invited Lars on, it was kind of like this. It was like, what? Lars got mixed up in this. All right, let's see what's going on.
What's happening?
Yeah. And, and then he shows up and blows our mind, and now Ben shows up and he's like, oh, by the way, people are actually thinking about it. It's not like with crypto, we were almost like, from a diversity standpoint, like, wow, we're excluding people in the crypto space. We need to talk to them.
Yeah.
But in this case, we're not making any specific effort to talk to people about carbon. It's just what
they want to talk about.
Mind. Yeah.
In fact, we could have talked to Ben about 22 topics. Like
that's true.
I think we might have mentioned Ben on the pod in the past on different topics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because of like the various. I mean, that guy.
Yeah. Anyway.
that guy used to have a hard job. That's all said.
Exactly.
But let's talk about hard things. What's hard for you lately?
Is there a
graphic?
noise? Is there a bonk?
Let's see what I got. Let's see.
There used to be something that went skadoosh or something.
Skadoosh. Wow, our platform's so good. Everyone, this is powered by Riverside FM.
Use it.
If your podcast isn't powered by Riverside FM, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Then you don't get to have the fun of doing it live. Okay.
Powered by Riverside FM.
Ow! Isn't this straight?
Just throw that in there.
Yeah, just
powered by Riverside FM.
Riverside FU.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got COVID.
Yep.
They told me the COVID was over. It's not over. I got it.
How is that for you? How many days were you out?
I was testing positive for 11 days.
Ugh.
And I had 3 real sick days. So just for those listeners that are new, we're very big into the vaccines. We love the vaccines. We were involved in designing vaccine lotteries, which people didn't like about us. But we were. And we took the vaccines. In fact, we got boosted. And then we got so sick.
It was so bad.
Yeah. So I was like, can't believe how sick I was. I had a fever 103. I could barely swallow. So anyways, be careful out there. But I will tell you, I'm going to have the greatest summer of my life because now I just got a letter from my doctor, which you should get, by the way, that says Ashby is recovered from COVID and is not contagious for 3 months. I'm just going to walk around with that letter. I'm going to do the Parisian 4 face kisses when I meet people, it's going to be breathe on me.
It's like the opposite of the Scarlet Letter,
exactly.
the golden letter. I mean, I had COVID too, and boy, does that reframe your life. I feel like it was almost like a little stress test to see like what things I needed to pay attention to on any given day. Because like when you're sitting, I mean, literally, Claire and I went on vacation in Puerto Rico. It was great. We got COVID the last day, and then we spent the next 2 weeks in a pile.
The photos were great, by the way. I saw the photos on the line. They might have been on the Twitter. I don't know where I saw
where I put them. I don't know where I'm the worst at social media. But yeah, like Puerto Rico's great. Everyone should go. But like, it really was a nice, I think, time to recognize the importance of process and investment management for me, because like, and really just long-term investing, right? Like, because that, if you're running a solo shop and you have active equity exposure and then you get COVID, certain kinds of investment strategies are going to blow up for sure.
Hopefully not yours.
I believe that we went through that magnificently. And it's all a credit to being punctilious about process. And I'm so happy and proud of that, even though I'm still kind of catching my breath as I come upstairs.
I will also admit that the process of COVID made me want to quit 19 of my 22 jobs.
Like, why do you need things from me right now?
I swear to God, I was telling Courtney like 2 days ago, being like, I think I'm ready to just freaking be a normal human. And
22 is a lot of jobs.
Have one job, and also I just need a real vacation where I sit on a beach and read a book. That was like the worst part, because I admit, and I don't encourage our listeners to take this approach, but like I just sat outside and worked. Like I worked through COVID. Like,
oh no,
it was so annoying. And anyway, that is what it is.
COVID. Yeah,
I think we're both better. Like, I would say I'm 99%. I have an occasional little cough, but I'm okay.
I'd say I'm back up to, like, just my normal level of miserable.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's vacation. I cannot say enough positive things about. Maybe we should have like a free money conference where instead of having actual content, we just make everybody sit on a beach.
Holy shit.
It's like a distributed conference.
I think you might have just invented something, or reinvented the boondoggle. Right?
Oh my God, it's the annual boondoggle. Yeah.
Like, literally, we pretend, because we're kind of real and we do conferences in other parts of our lives. We help people pretend that this is that conference.
Yep. But really,
it's actually just a boondoggle.
We just sit on the beach in Puerto Rico and vibe.
If anybody wants to sponsor this event hosted by the Free Money Podcast in Belize, I don't know where.
I like Belize. As
honestly, I told you, that's where I want to buy my island.
In Belize, really? I did not know that.
Oh, when Free Money Podcast takes its SPAC public, that's where you go. You buy an island in Belize. Anyway,
I believe it's time for yet another segment right now.
Oh, I love that noise.
This segment with the sound effects. Why do you love that noise? It's because it's your time to sound off, right? Obviously.
Yeah. Answer your questions and allow Sloan to tell you to do something.
Yep, which is subscribe to the damn podcast, and/or if you've already subscribed to the podcast, leave us a nice little review, ski.
5 stars. That's all.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, it literally is free for you to give us 5 stars. Those stars don't cost. It's not $1 a star.
And it makes us look so good. Like, my dead mother, God rest her soul, sits up there in heaven. And every time you give her a review, she smiles down on
literally.
You.
You are committed to this podcast, Sloan. When you start invoking the dead mother to get a 5-star review, I'm just so in awe of your commitment to our shared experience here.
Well, she's kind of a stage mom, so. The first question.
All right, what do we got?
This is very direct, and I love it. Oh, yeah, and by the way, if you want to ask a question, you totally can. I'm slow at responding to emails sometimes, but we do respond. And the email to do it is freemoneypod@gmail.com, and/or just reach out to either of us if you have our contact info. But if you don't, freemoneypod@gmail.com. First question is being a socialist incompatible with accruing personal wealth?
I think it is.
Interesting.
Because socialism is defined as production, distribution, and exchange owned or regulated by the community, right? Mm-hmm. So we're producing things, we're distributing those things, we're exchanging those things, and the ownership of all that or regulation of all that is done by the community or owned by the community. And so it's really just that or regulated that opens the door for private property and kind of helps to explain why you have my favorite kind of socialism, which is champagne socialism. The champagne socialist is why you see quite a lot of wealthy people wanting to see that production, distribution, and exchange kind of being regulated, not owned, regulated by the community. And I think that is in alignment. I think much more strict versions of socialism, and there's been many throughout the years, would want to see the means of production, distribution, and exchange owned, where the property rights are actually owned by the community. And in that case, you're moving towards communism, communityism, rather than socialism. I think that it's a spectrum, but I would say you could be wealthy and be a socialist. You'd just be paying very high taxes, and you would be subjecting yourself to regulation.
Yeah, and I think as a practical matter.
Sorry, I think Siri's talking to me. Sorry.
Siri was like, "What is regulation?"
I was like, Jesus.
Apple's like, "Are you talking about regulation?" No.
Exactly. Our terms of service are longer than the Constitution.
I mean, like, I think that in, as a practical matter for the individual that's asking this, like, I think it's important to realize that, like, socialism is an identity, but it's also a journey, right? And there is a degree of activism and building things that needs to happen in order for socialism, as we collectively imagine it, to become a reality. And in order to do that, we have to do some nitty-gritty stuff that involves building power, and amassing personal wealth is, for better or worse, a good way to do that. And so I think that I think you could certainly use wealth to socialist ends, especially by doing things like you talked about, like pushing for regulations that are thoughtful, and for well-governed, publicly minded institutions.
Yep.
But it's definitely like a higher moral standard than you're going to get from just regular money thinking. This next one is I feel like this is kind of like an Ashby crack question in a way.
It's amazing.
Biotech and life sciences companies are selling off significantly. Like, for instance, this is a great. I love it when readers send examples. More than 20% of the NASDAQ Biotech Index is trading at a discount to the cash on their balance sheet.
Whoa.
And these are companies that are like doing our drug research and development.
Yeah.
And the reader says, "A penny for your thoughts. What does this say about the way we fund innovation?"
So to me, look, I think the problem for me is we're talking about public stocks. Yeah. And I think over the last 30 months, once COVID hit, maybe that wasn't 30 months ago, whatever it is, 24 months.
Ever since 2012.
Yeah. I just don't understand how it works anymore. Right. And by that, I mean the economy, because it's all a function of the Fed. And so it says to me that stock prices under COVID, because the Fed was buying all these risky assets and literally printing money and buying up stuff, companies started to believe their value was much higher than it was. And so then they started doing wacky things with that money. And then all of a sudden we're in a different world where the Fed says there's inflation, and now we're panicking. And these, it's not just biotech, it's the entire technology industry has sold off incredibly. I mean, go look at some of these fintech companies. It's wild.
My gosh. Yeah.
It's wild. Affirm or Upstart or Robinhood. I mean, Robinhood, I guess I don't mind seeing getting, it's like some of these things, you're just like, yeah, that felt crazy before. And so now it's back crazy the other way. And I think that's probably what's happening in biotech. Probably a lot more about the space than I do, Sloan, given that you're spending a lot of time kind of looking in the vegan world. But it's like, for me, I just see this as the pendulum swinging around the Fed. I still don't understand. So I wouldn't tie it to how should we fund innovation. I wish it was that simple, because that's how we used to think about companies and stocks. Like, wow, how do we fund innovation? What's their R&D budget? But now it's like, what's the Fed doing?
Well, I would say these stocks selling off is great.
For people with cash.
Well, A, for people with cash, but B, for the way we fund innovation, right? Like, so what has happened?
Fun.
Well, this is like my contrarian, like, galaxy brain take on this. But what does it actually mean that we have all of these companies trading at this discount to cash, right? It means that we have a system where people can stand up entities. Oh no. People can stand up entities.
Uh-oh. I still see you and hear you.
Okay, good.
You are fuzzy now, though. Your phone.
I have my work phone started ringing off the hook. And
That screw up our entire setup.
Like a total boomer, I actually installed a physical desk phone that I don't know how to work. But
it's like when somebody would call the fax machine and it would cut out your internet. You know, because that way you had just one line. You know.
Yeah, exactly. But so like I mean, so why is this good? What kind of a lunatic thinks this is good? Well, like we made the companies, we stood them up. They're doing R&D. They have cash on their balance sheet. The market can see that. We can see that.
Yeah.
And we track them as a sector. That's freaking great, right?
That is cool.
The purpose of the public market is not to have stocks go up in a line forever. It's to create entities and allow them to exist in a context where they have continuous access to capital at a cost.
Yeah.
Right? What the market is saying is that it's more expensive to put capital into these companies. It's more expensive for these companies to raise capital now than it was before. But it's beautiful that we have enough of that it's a place where we can be like, all right, let's start, Sloan and Ashby Biotech LLC to fund research and development into our line of portable energy beverages.
I love
it's a beautiful thing.
First of all, your answer was so much better than mine. I'm almost jealous.
I don't know.
That was very good.
I feel like it was a group project.
I just loved your answer. Because it touches the part of me that really hopes sincerely that the market is still an incentive machine. Like, we're going to send the right signals around to the different actors and we're going to get them working on the most constructive projects for all of us because we're going to pay them for those projects, and on and on and on the incentive machine goes. And I want to believe, Sloan, that market still functions. It just feels like it stopped for a while with the Fed buying everything.
I think biotech is a particularly fraught sector for understanding what the heck is going on because so much of the catalysts in that sector are binary, clinical trial outcomes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I actually don't remember a time when people have argued that the biotech market has made sense. I think it's incredibly rife with inefficiency and opportunity to exploit good research. I actually also love the fact that almost all of it uses animal testing, and as an investor, I'm not allowed to invest in any of it. It saves so much time. Otherwise you'd have to do. I mean, I just invest in a company that rents lab space to those companies. So
love that. I invest in a lot of little companies myself. I think I've mentioned that to you. I love having a tight niche, which I have, because all this stuff comes in at you, and you're like, sorry, that's not on thesis. I just, then you don't have to be a dick. You're like,
you don't have to be a dick. Yeah.
Like, I just don't do helicopter cars. Like, that's just not what I do.
I mean, although, if you could get your own helicopter car, I mean, maybe.
I want one. Bad. I just can't invest in it. I'll buy one.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a pretty good one.
Okay, here we go.
I'm really, really curious in your answers. Who plays you in the Free Money movie?
Oh, I forgot you had that one on there. First of all, let's just get honest with each other. In the Free Money movie, that's a movie about us committing a massive fraud or crime or something. Because I can't imagine why they would make a movie about us. You know what I mean? It's like it all started here. They created the world's biggest Ponzi scheme on self-gardening. It started with carbon credits for their own garden. But it ended.
Did you call it a Ponzi scheme? Like a podcast Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme?
It's a Ponzi scheme because it's pods. It's seeds and pods for your garden. Anyway,
oh my God.
I didn't have I didn't want to say anybody. Part of me is like Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good.
He's the guy who played Zuckerberg. I think he did. He
Yeah.
plays all these people who are kind of nerdy trying to solve problems, Either that or Jason Momoa in my case.
Yeah.
Aquaman.
Aquaman.
I just need a couple tattoos and a six pack and muscles.
Yep. I mean, my
about
only
you?
requirement, I want someone who's actually worse looking than me.
That's what I was going. That's why I picked Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah,
I think I'm better looking than him. But if people in the background are like, actually, don't even tell me. Don't write in.
Yeah, when I watched the WeWork thing, it's Jared Leto is actually much worse looking and much less charismatic than Adam Newman.
Yeah.
And
true.
like I think that that's an important thing. So I will refrain from giving names because I don't want to share my my list of people who are worse looking than I am. But I would hope that it would be a trans person who would play me.
Yeah.
Or
That's
at least
a good request.
or at least a cis person who commits to transitioning for the purpose of the role.
Hey, what is that called? That type of acting? Method acting.
It's also called forced feminization in the community, but method acting, sure.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But okay, so this is the part of the show that everyone is really listening for, which is the gardening segment.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I know. We know.
Yeah. No, you guys can quiet down now. It's a little much.
A little bit more.
A little bit more.
Hey, I got a Dear Ashby and Sloan question.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I've been saving it because it's garden related. And it came to me in my Slack channel.
Wow.
So that means I knew who it was. And it was it was an employee of mine who is an avid listener of the pod, and she is fabulous, and she's a gardener. I won't say names because I don't feel like we call people up by name, in case people are like, "That's a bad question," and then they get targeted on.
Yeah.
I want to protect people here.
Yeah, we don't want Ephanon coming for people in attribution.
Like we are poking big bears with sharp sticks out there. So we're trying to protect you. She asks, I put a bird feeder in, but the birds aren't coming. Any tips on how I can get birds to come to my little bird bath?
Oh.
Do you have any tips? I have one, but I thought I would start.
All of my tips at the moment are related to getting the birds the heck away from my garden because they've been eating all my strawberries. I guess plant strawberries because then they'll come and eat all of them. If you have, like a lot of people actually plant bushes and stuff that has edible berries for wildlife specifically. I think that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never approached this with that kind of an objective of mind. Only the
you're trying to get birds out of your yard, which I know because I also tie little ribbons around my yard to get rid of these damn birds from my blueberries, which are blasting right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you love a good berry, and I mean, I would share them with the birds, but there just aren't enough right now. And I want my strawberry plants to establish.
Exactly.
Is that too much to ask?
Well, my tip for you out there, Barbara, who asked the question, sorry, I wouldn't say your last name, is to make sure that your bird bath is not at a level that cats or any other creatures can access it. Because
very smart.
Don't want to be kicking it in the tub and have a squirrel or cat or coyote be able to get access. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and I saw my in-laws do this, they prime it. They'll put like bird feeders near it. Yeah, so it becomes a little ecosystem of like bird activity. Eat some food, take a bath.
That's a really good idea. Another thing I've seen is people putting solar fountains in their bird baths, so that the
fun
because a lot of animals have very strong reactions to stagnant water. I've noticed
it can't be stagnant water. That's a great point. Yeah.
So if you have you can get like a little $30 thing that'll charge from the sun and just kind of keep the water moving. We did this actually with our cat water also, and they we put a little aquarium bubbler in our cat's water fountain, and they freaking love it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I would recommend that.
Yeah, now that I think of it, my mom's bird bath, which is just filled with birds. It is actually a fountain. And it just happens to have like a big bucket of water there. Anyway, that's
baller. Fountains are baller.
Fountains are baller, and they take away the sound of your neighbors, or whatever's going on. Although, can we just all agree as part of the gardening section that people who use blowers for leaves should spend time in prison?
Yeah, well, not just because of the carbon footprint of those things. I mean, for heaven's sake. Those two-stroke motors. Yeah, I think they finally made the two-stroke motors illegal in California.
I feel like I'm still hearing the blowers. I live in California, and I hear, oh, it's like Saturday morning. You're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Jeez
Yeah.
Louise.
I'd say, are you kidding me? Blowing that off? You got to compost that.
No, you got to compost. Oh, we are composting now in my family salon. I told you. Yeah, we're just
That's right.
Yep, it's working great.
That's
working
so good.
great.
Yeah. I mean,
I got some tips. I got 3 quick tips. Was what I planned here. First tip, which is going to sound a bit extreme, but I have a reason for it. Don't plant citrus trees. It's my tip. It's like,
okay, we got who hurt you, Ashby?
What my citrus trees hurt me, literally and figuratively. The literal is they have the biggest, sharpest, pokiest trees. I just thought of that when you said who hurt you. They are so pokey. And the second thing is they grow slower than a human.
Yeah.
They grow slower than a human. My kids have grown more up than my
Mm-hmm.
citrus trees have. And so just note that. Okay. And so I literally ripped out one of my 6 orange trees because it was in a perfect watering spot, planted an oak tree.
Good job.
An
Good
oak.
job. Yeah. Yeah. Got to upgrade the team.
Yep. So that's my, and I just planted an oak tree and I'm so fucking pumped is the second thing I wrote down. I am so excited. My friend Diane Schrader gave me an oak tree she grew from an acorn.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
and then I have planted that tree and it is going. And I'm excited to come back in 50 years when it's, 40 feet tall.
That's so cute.
And then this is for us. We just did a huge mulch session. We actually ordered a pallet of mulch, and it shows up. The truck shows up, drops the pallet down. We had 20 bags of mulch, and we just mulched it up. And it's so amazing after you mulch a garden, and it's like all the plants are just popping. Anyway,
I mean, disrespect mulch at your peril, beloved listener. It is like I cannot speak. I mean, because long time listeners know I garden on my roof, which is incredibly exposed to sun, and mulch does such a great job keeping the water down there. I would say my tip for right now is another process tip, right? This year we've been really experimenting with, instead of buying plants, which can, it's really actually quite hard to buy plants from a greenhouse that uses sustainable practices.
Yeah.
I don't recommend looking into it unless you are ready to do a lot of diligence. The easy way around it is get some seeds, right? So we went to Fedco, which is a fantastic long-time seed supplier.
Neat.
And what doing the seed approach, growing from seed, does versus buying live plants is you can kind of just say, oh, well, that didn't work. We'll put new stuff down. Oh, well, that didn't work. We'll put new stuff down all day long, right? The cost equation of plants is insane, where you buy one plant and it's like $15. You can buy 100 seeds for that same price. And you get a great window into the seed's early germination.
Yeah.
You get an opportunity. And at the end of the day, you get a stronger plant because all of that transport and moving around hurts those guys.
Funny.
Yeah. So and you can get much more kind of species diversity this way because there are, for stuff like, say a cleome flower, right? You might not even be able to get a cleome at your local greenhouse, but if you go on Fedco, you'll find 100 different kinds.
That's amazing.
And so I really, really recommend that. It's a great way to discover what works for your space because you can say, I don't know if I can grow cosmos. I don't know if I can grow snapdragons.
Try it out.
Yeah, try it out. Let it, see what happens. And, that's how you really grow in the practice of gardening, right? It might not necessarily give you a near-term outcome that is as pulled together as you would if you just, spent a bunch of money at the garden center. But it will definitely give you a lot more stuff to check in on in the early stages. And that's really fun.
And if you're gardening on your roof and you want because we've had a conversation about seed starting and maybe it was a listener question at some point.
Yeah. What's your seed starting setup?
Yeah. It's actually like you'll do it in your kitchen or you'll do it in your living room or something. It's like if you were apartment gardening, it's actually really fun and engaging to start from seeds. And, I admit that, like, I have replanted tomato seeds from tomatoes I found delicious that I bought.
Oh, that's
at the
what you do.
store,
That's what you
and
do.
They grew.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like seed saving. One of the big things, I'm in the middle of this book right now called Waste and Want, which is like
Yeah.
a big reimagining. It's basically it's a cultural history of trash and how we relate to disposability as a culture. But like for centuries, gardening was about saving the seeds of stuff you liked and planting it.
Huh.
It's only with the rise of the recent, like, kind of agricultural industry that we're thinking about seeds as like, oh, I want to get this F1 hybrid. I want to get this. I want to get that. Like, it's really an intuitive process where you go, I like this. I want to keep it around. Let me harvest the seeds. And the closer you can get to that, the better.
Oh, that is so fun to hear. It's like empowering, You find something you really like, save a seed, or grab whatever it's growing and see if you can plant it.
My grandmother is an absolute queen, and she is growing a lemon tree that she grew from a grocery store seed in her Upper West Side apartment.
That's amazing.
Like
that goes against my recommendation, though.
Yeah, it does. I will speak with her about that.
But if you are gonna grow something from a seed and keep it for a lifetime, that's probably pretty good.
Yeah, and in an apartment, it's kind of sweet that it doesn't grow that fast.
And by the way, lemon trees in like apartments are very cute. I've seen them. I have a friend that on Zoom has a lemon tree. That's a real lemon tree, and it doesn't. It stays the same. It's like a bonsai tree. Like, it doesn't move in terms of the size. These things don't grow. They're pretending to grow.
Yeah.
All right.
Do we have anything else to talk about? I don't know.
Rest in peace. I got one final. Rest in peace, Tommy the Tomato. 5 years.
Oh my God, your plant died?
Yes, finally. Tommy the Tomato plant. 5 years of tomatoes. Remember, these are supposed to be annuals, dear listeners. We had one annual last for 5 years. We thought I was going to live forever.
Did you plant the seeds from it?
We have multiple times, yeah. So
you got some tiny Tims floating.
True. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Just in a different spot in the garden. And I should show you a picture. I've now screwed up again and let my mint go crazy. It's insane.
That's what I love that. I just have a whole I have a whole bed dedicated to Crazy Man. I mean, let it do what it wants.
Exactly. But no, it's like coming out through the sides.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, you know what? Okay, wait. This is
the last thing.
The last thing. So I have the craziest plant that is popping up left and right in my garden this year. Tomatillos. I grew them last year.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're actually it's a berry technically.
Okay.
But like we grew them last year, they did great, and then we weren't going to grow them again this year because we wanted to grow more flowers. But these tomatillo seeds have just made it into our compost and are popping up. I think we have 4 tomatillo plants that we did.
God.
And they're, I mean, like, what a gift. Which is a way of saying a weed is only a weed if you decide it is. It can also be,
True.
kind of a fun part of the experience.
Like, I want to go grab a big handful of mint and just like drop it in the lemonade now. Like, whatever you're doing, you're like, oh, I got more mint than I know what to do with. Like,
it's so great.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's what wealth really is to me.
Yeah.
Is like when you have that level of, access to just little luxuries that you want.
Exactly. And on that note,
all right. Bye. Bye. The contest, like the unspoken contest to say bye in the weirdest way.